Okay, so maybe we can get started then. Thank you everybody so much for joining. 1 second. Okay, so I will provide an introduction to our global data collection, and then I'll talk about the energy questionnaire. And we are undergoing this data collection exercise with our colleagues at OECD. Unfortunately, they are not able to be here today, but they have prepared a video for us. So we will show that video. And then I will talk about the timeline that we have for our data collection, both for energy and air emission accounts. And please feel free to put any questions into the chat or raise your hand. More than happy to answer any questions that you all have. So in terms of this data collection exercise, we are undertaking this under the auspices of the UN Committee of Experts on Environmental Economic Accounting. And for those of you who are not familiar with the SEEA is the global body that is responsible for the overall prioritization and implementation of the SEEA. So it reports to the UN Statistical Commission, for example. And they have identified physical energy flow accounts, or PEFA, and air emission accounts, or AEA, as priority areas for global data collection, along with some other priority areas. And these were chosen based on their broad policy relevance, including for the SDGs. And so the idea is that the committee has really prioritized global data collection for these 5 areas. And actually, PEFA and AEA are the most compiled SEEA accounts. So I think it goes to show how policy relevant physical energy flow and air emission accounts are. So what do we mean when we say global databases? So here we are always prioritizing national data. So when constructing these global databases, if national data exists, that we will definitely take that. And in tandem, we also want to be working on estimates. National data does not exist, but those estimates we understand always should be country approved. So this is very much in line with, for example, the SDG data flows. So of course, with this questionnaire, our current focus is on collecting data from countries which already have national PEFA or AEA accounts, but do not yet report to an international organization. So for example, we have Eurostat countries, but they already report to Eurostat. They are legally required to compile AEA and PEFA accounts. So our current data collection is not going to focus on these countries. So here we're really focusing on countries that already have national level accounts, but do not currently report to an international organization. And we also see these global templates as useful for countries who do not yet compile PEFA or AEA accounts, but want to start doing so in the future. So these global templates can more or less provide you information on what you are going to be expected to report on. So a little bit more about how we went through this process of creating these questionnaires. The process began in late 2021, and this was very much a joint exercise between UNSD and OECD. So we took leadership of the development of the energy questionnaire, and OECD took leadership of the development of the air emission questionnaire. And we did this in collaboration with the wider SEEA working group on global databases. And as I mentioned, Eurostat already has a questionnaire, and countries are legally required to report both PEFA and AEA. So we certainly didn't want to start from scratch. We used their questionnaire as a starting point, and we hope that we have made it fit for purpose for countries of different levels of data availability. And we also have tested this. So we tested the questionnaire and to see that we have made it fit for purpose in spring and summer of last year. And we tested it with a variety of countries which are listed there. Some of you may be present in the audience today, and a big thank you to all of you for your help. And once we revised the questionnaire on the basis of the pilot testing, we sent this to the SEEA Central Framework Technical Committee and the broader UN SEEA for adoption in fall/winter of last year. And I should also mention right now the Data Gaps Initiative, which is a new G20 IMF initiative, and their Emission and PEFA are part of 2 recommendations on filling climate change data gaps. And these questionnaires will also be used for the DGI. So you already know that we have launched data collection late last month. I think you all probably received the letter, and that's why we're here today. Part of global databases, though, is of course dissemination. So that is also ongoing work that we are undertaking. And the idea is to build a dissemination platform for these global data sets of the priority accounts on our website. So I'll just briefly mention the energy questionnaire structure, and then we will go to the questionnaire itself. So the questionnaire is fully compliant and mapped to the SEEA DSD, and there are 4 main tables. We have the supply and use table, of course. For the use table, we break this down into transformation use and end use. We have a table on indicators, which is automatically calculated, and we have a bridge table for the residence to territory principle. So I think based on our experience and knowledge, we know not a lot of you compile table E, but if you do, we certainly welcome you to fill it in. And we encourage countries to do so because it creates a bridge between energy balances and energy statistics and the accounts, and it can be quite useful for communication. But in terms of what we're expecting, Table A and Table B are certainly the 2 tables that you would need to fill out. If you have information on B1 and B2, definitely those should be filled out as well. And then Table D, that is automatically calculated, and Table E, if you have that information, it's great. Okay, let me now go to the questionnaire. Maybe if you can confirm, I don't think you're seeing this. Can you confirm if you can see the Excel?
Yes, we can. It's on screen.
Questionnaire, anybody? Yes, okay, great. So let me walk through the Excel. I'm not going to go, too much in detail, but I'll just try to highlight a few things. So here, this is just the introduction sheet. We ask that you fill out your country name by choosing from this dropdown, and then a country code will automatically come up. And one important thing to notice is that each file or each questionnaire is going to be for 1 reference year only. And you'll see that this is a little different from air emission accounts. In addition to your contact information, it would be great if you can provide information on where you have disseminated your PEFA accounts and information on your release date/schedules. The next sheet is the structure sheet, and this is more or less just a table of contents. One handy thing is that it shows you which sheets need to be filled in and which might be automatically filled out. So I mentioned, for example, that Table D, it's automatically filled in with formulas, so you don't need to touch that. However, Table A, you'll need to fill out. Table B is a special case, which I would like to mention. If you have tables B1 and B2, please fill those out first. And then Table B is automatically calculated. It just sums up Table B1 and B2 automatically. However, if you do not have transformation use and end use of energy and cannot fill out tables B1 and B2, that's perfectly fine. We just ask that you overwrite the formulas in table B and just put your numbers directly in there. Yep, so then for the scheme sheet, this is just really information on the specific tables that we are asking people to compile, and it links this information to the manual. It links it to the SEEA Central Framework. You will definitely need to take a close look at the instructions, and I will walk you through a few points here. This sheet is quite an important one because you will need to select the template that you want to fill. So while this is one Excel workbook, it actually contains 3 different templates. And this is what I meant when I said that we were trying to make this fit for purpose for different countries of different data availability. So we have a detailed, medium, and aggregated template. The detailed template is more or less equivalent to the Eurostat template. It has 64 ISIC categories, and it disaggregates household activities. So if we look at table A, we can see that, okay, yes, we have ISIC A, but then we have ISIC A01, A02, A03, and it's quite a few ISIC industries. We know that not everybody is going to be able to do that, right? So we also offer a medium template, which is 21 ISIC categories at the first digit level. So then we see here that this is A, B, C, D, etc. And then finally, we offer a aggregated template, and this is 5 ISIC categories, and then all other industries. So it's A, B, C, D, H, and all other industries. And this was decided based on the Central Framework Technical Committee. We have technical notes for the PEFA accounts, and they identified this industry breakdown as sort of a minimum that we're asking countries to consider compiling when they do compilation of PEFA. I would like to also point out that even though we have these different industry breakdowns for the templates, what does remain constant is the typology of natural energy inputs, energy products, and energy residuals. And we actually have used the same typology as that used by Eurostat. And we tested this during our pilot, and we found that it worked fairly well for most countries. And in the energy products sheet, actually, it has information on the definitions for these product groupings, and then it also has a crosswalk to SEEA. I'm wondering if there are any questions at this point. I'm happy to answer them. And if not, we can move along. Okay, well, I will move along, and if there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it into the chat or anything. Because we have these 3 different templates, they are structured in a certain way that will help us undertake data validation. So we ask that you do not try to change the format of the questionnaire by adding or deleting rows. And I'll talk about the checking macros a little bit later, but that would also disable those macros. However, if you find an issue with the questionnaire, for example, if you find the formatting is not easy for you, maybe these different columns are not wide enough for you, please let us know. And we are happy to fix the questionnaire and then send it back to you. So this is our first time doing data collection, and I think we very much welcome any feedback that you have. So I do see one question in the chat that maybe I can answer right now. And the question is from Allah, and they're asking if it's necessary to complete the questionnaire for countries that do not have PEFA and AEA. The short answer is no. We are not asking countries to compile the questionnaire if they do not already disseminate or have official PEFA or AEA accounts. Instead, this questionnaire should really be seen as a guide for countries that don't compile these accounts yet as to what they would be asked by, UNSD or OECD to report on when they do compile these accounts in the future. So I hope that clarifies that point. A few other things that I would like to mention here is that you must have all of the cells filled. You cannot leave a cell blank. And we also ask you to distinguish between data points that are 0 versus those that are not available. So if something is not available in your country, you should not be putting a 0, but instead you should be putting a colon. Another thing that you will notice about the questionnaire is that we have these yellow footnote cells, and these are observation level footnotes. So we have predefined footnotes, which can be found in the footnote instruction tab. And then if you have country-specific footnotes, you can put them over here. You can write what they mean. And these should always go in this yellow cell and not as, for example, don't put a comment here because we will not be able to read in those footnotes. Okay, so I think the last thing that I wanted to mention, and I see there's another question, a very good question here, about the units for the data. So these are in terajoules. So we do have some checking functions here. There are 3 different types of checks that we have across the sheets. The first one is looking if the sums of the natural input categories, the energy products, and the energy residuals down here, if the sums actually equal the aggregation of the components. We also have a red check, which is looking at the same thing except for the ISIC subcategories. So it is looking, for example, we're looking at the aggregated template here. It's looking if this 42,000 is actually the sum of the individual industries. And then finally, we have the orange check because this is making sure that supply actually equals use across tables A and B. So those are the 3 checks, and maybe I can just quickly demonstrate these checks for you. So I've introduced an error or 2, and so we should see some red or blue or orange cells popping up. So let's click the Run Checks button. And sure enough, we have some things coming up. So looking at this blue cell, what this is telling us is that the sum of these components under natural energy inputs for ISIC B are not equaling what this total is. I'm not sure what's going on here. Well, I don't know how to get rid of that. The annotate, it looks like people can annotate, but let's just ignore that. Well, I know that this is because I introduced this one here, so let's delete that. And actually, you will see that you cannot delete it because you have to leave, you have to put a value there. So this is actually supposed to be a 0. Let's check and see if that solves our issue. So anytime you want to run the check again, you actually have to click Clear Checks, and then you can run the checks. So that solved part of our issue. We see that we have this red cell here still, and this is saying that, okay, the sum of our ISIC subcategories these is not equaling the aggregate. And well, we can see here that 5.7 does not equal 7.7. So let's amend this issue and do clear checks and then run checks again. Okay, perfect. That has solved that issue. And let's take a look at the rest of our table. Okay, well, we see we have a lot of orange cells here, and that is because supply does not equal use. And that makes perfect sense because this table is full of zeros. So those are the three checks, and these are really meant for help both us and you. Hopefully it helps you fill in your questionnaire better, and hopefully it helps us in getting a more, a cleaner questionnaire back. That said, this data validation, these checks are really a first level of data validation. When we receive your questionnaire, we will validate your questionnaires much more thoroughly. We have developed rules that are based on Eurostat's validation rules, but are a little bit more lenient and also tailored to these specific templates. So that is what I have for energy. Are there any questions or comments? If not, I am going to now play the video of OECD, since unfortunately they're not able to be here today. So, 1 second. Hope you all can see this. And I'm going to share the sound. And I will start the video.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this brief introductory video about the Global Air Emission Account, or AEA questionnaire, which was developed through a collaboration between the OECD and the United Nations, along with another questionnaire from the System of Environmental Economic Accounts for physical flows of energy, or PEFA. So what is the Air Emission Accounts? Well, they compile data on emissions by greenhouse gases and air pollutants by types of economic activity. The accounts create an alignment of boundaries, scope, and classification with economic statistics, which is useful for many different types of analysis of the drivers of climate change and opportunities and possibilities to address the problem by mitigating these emissions. The accounts also interact and complement other forms of emissions reporting, such as the inventories reporting under the UN Framework Convention for Climate Change, or UNFCCC. And we know that there is a very strong demand globally to expand the geographic coverage of the current compilation of official air emission accounts by countries. So why do we need a standardized questionnaire? Well, in fact, previously such a questionnaire existed, developed by the Statistical Office of the European Union, or Eurostat, for the collection of these accounts from EU member states. And we also know that a number of non-European countries have been compiling for some time official air emission accounts, effectively using their own templates or their own reporting mechanisms. Plus, there are many countries around the world who have just started new programs or new plans to compile air emission accounts in the near future. For these two latter categories, there previously existed no global template, no reporting mechanism in order for standardized compilation of these accounts outside of Europe. We know that in these countries there is a diversity in terms of what is the current capacities for compiling these counts and data availability for reporting this information. So for that reason, we developed these standardized questionnaires with multiple tiers in terms of level of detail in order to introduce a flexibility for the different contexts across countries with respect to reporting capacity, while also maintaining this harmonization of the reporting across countries. For more on this and more detail about what's inside the questionnaires, now I turn to my colleagues.
Thank you, Daniel, for the introduction. Now let me go through the questionnaire to explain its structure. There are different worksheets. In this video, I will focus on the worksheets which you will need to fill in. Other worksheets are rather for information purpose. In the cover sheet, please fill in your country name and contact information. If you look at Worksheets tabs on the right-hand side, you have different worksheets per different gas or air pollutant. Let me choose CO2, for example. Please pay attention to the row 3 for the unit in each worksheet, as it can be different across pollutants. Please fill in the value of emissions in the white column under each year. In the narrow yellow column, you can put flags or footnotes. Details on the footnotes are explained in the worksheet footnote instructions. In addition to predefined flags, you can describe free text for footnotes in the worksheet footnote list, if necessary. As Daniel has explained, we have a tiered structure in this questionnaire for countries with different level of data availability. We encourage countries to use a detailed template if corresponding data are available, but you have the option to use medium or aggregate template depending on your data availability. In the worksheet instructions, you can choose different level of details. In this example, let me choose aggregate template. The selection of the template has two consequences. First, the number of pollutant worksheet is reduced. In the aggregate template, you see only greenhouse gas total, CO2, CH4, and N2O. Second, the level of industry classification becomes more aggregated. For example, in the CO2 worksheet, you see only letter-level sectors for A, B, C, D, E, F, and H. Other services, excluding H, transport and storage, are combined as services. If you choose a medium template, you see more worksheets for pollutants. The CO2 worksheet in the medium template shows all letter-level industries and some digit-level industries under some emission-intensive sectors like manufacturing and transport. Let me come back to the worksheet instructions. You would need to choose the global warming potential if you fill in the worksheets for the greenhouse gases. Global warming potential is a factor which converts emissions of different greenhouse gases into tons of CO2 equivalent. There is an automatic calculation function for total greenhouse gas. Please choose the global warming potential to be applied for the greenhouse gas total calculation. This should be the same as the global warming potential which you have applied for the calculation of tons of CO2 equivalent of the HFC, PFC, SF6, and NF3. If the global warming potential is selected and the worksheets of individual greenhouse gases are filled in, you can click the GHG button on the top of the greenhouse gas worksheet, which automatically calculates greenhouse gas total. Now my colleague Matthew will explain the check function, which is embedded in each pollutant worksheet, and explain validation rules.
Each worksheet in the questionnaire has a check function that looks for internal consistency for the industries, plausible time series values, as well as permitted values that can be reported within the cells. These checks are based on the Eurostat air emissions accounts validation rules. So here we have some data for carbon dioxide emissions for the years 2021 and 2022 that we can run the checks on. Cells that are detected in the check will be flagged with a red highlight and/or a comment, depending on the check type. So when we run the checks, we see that there are some cells that are detected from the check. If we look at the first one, for agricultural, forestry, and fishing industries, we see that the parent cell is not equal to the sum of the sub-industries for 2022. So to resolve this, we'll need to align the totals. If we clear the checks and then re-1, we see that it now passes. Scrolling down, we see that there's a comment for the cell of transportation and storage in 2022. And this denotes that there is an implausible time series value detected. The reason for this is that there's more than 30% variation from 2021 to 2022. And the total for H represents more than 10% of the total emissions from all industries, as reported in row 5. So if this figure is indeed the intended one, then this change must be explained with a free text footnote. So one can go to the footnote this worksheet and define a free text footnote to explain the changes. We see that there's another issue for K, financial and insurance activities. Here, the parent cell and some of the sub-industries are quite close, but this doesn't meet the tolerance thresholds that are applied of either 1% or an absolute difference of 1. So here we'll need to align the totals. Clearing the checks, rerunning. This now passes. Lastly, we also see that for the breakdown of household air emissions, that we have reported NA values with 2 periods. And this is flagged as an invalid value. We must only be reporting positive numbers or colons to denote values that are not available. Negative values are only allowed for other adjustments and statistical discrepancy and LUCF. So to fix this, we'll need to put in colons. Clearing the checks and again rerunning. This now passes. The questionnaire also contains a checks report worksheet, which will run the checks for each worksheet where data is reported. After the checks are complete, it will provide information in the following rows, giving the worksheet, the concerned parent, the year in which the check occurs, the type of check, and the details of the message. Links are also provided that will direct the user to the cell where the check occurs. From here, you can resolve the issue.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching this video. I hope it was useful for you. To download a copy of this questionnaire and also the questionnaire on physical flows of energy, you can visit the link that's shown on the screen in front of you. And you're also, well, for more, if you have questions or for more information, you're welcome to contact our team here at the OECD at sdd.seea@oecd.org.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if you all have any questions on the air emission account presentation. If not, perhaps I'll go through a quick timeline. And then I did get a question or two in my direct messages that I can cover. And then I'll actually hand over to my colleague Elsa for a quick poll to see if we can get a little bit more information from you all. So in terms of the timeline, we already sent out the questionnaire, as you all know, and this was sent as an attachment, and it is also available on our website. You can see this link. An important thing to note is if you download it from the website and oftentimes even your email, Microsoft has blocked the macros. So you will need to make sure that you enable the macros. And we sent along instructions along with the letter that we sent to the NSOs. And these instructions are also on the website. In terms of when we're hoping to receive the questionnaire back, we are asking that you send in the questionnaire by April 14th. This is for both air emission and physical energy flow accounts. And then for validation, we will start getting in touch with countries with some questions through May and to August. And then hopefully in September, we can start to release these questions, release the data. And I had a good question in terms of, what exactly is the information that is required in terms of number of years that we're asking for. It would be great if, say, you already compile SEEA energy accounts for 2015 to 2020, if you're able to send us all of those years. So then that would be one spreadsheet per year. And I also got another good question as to why countries should fill out these questionnaires if they already fill out the energy statistics questionnaire. So I wanted to emphasize again that this questionnaire is only meant for countries that already compile SEEA energy accounts. So if you do not compile SEEA energy accounts, if you do not compile physical energy flow accounts, or if you do not compile air emission accounts, do not fill out these questionnaires. And there are several differences between the SEEA accounts and energy balances, and there are several differences between air emission accounts and air emission inventories. I don't think that we can really cover that today. But we do have very good e-learning on the SEEA Central Framework, and also SEEA Energy. And in short, people are compiling the SEEA because it is linked to the national accounts, and it is linked to economic information. So you can really find, you can create indicators that are based on the environment economy nexus. So if you think about energy balances, for example, they're really focused more on the energy sector, energy technologies, and they use the territory principle. But energy accounts use the residence principle. They are more in tune with how we present and how we compile economic data, so that you can really compare economic and environmental or energy data in this case. So again, this questionnaire is really only meant for countries that are already compiling the accounts. And if you do not compile the SEEA accounts, you should not be filling out this questionnaire, but we're happy to point you to more resources. I think Elsa has just kindly put in the link to where the resources are. So are there any other questions from people? We're more than happy to answer. If not, I'm going to hand over to Elsa, who has a little poll for participants.
Hello all, good morning, good afternoon. It's a little bit difficult to see because the screen is still shared, but I would like to send you a very short poll. So just basically a question to understand if who of you that are kindly participating are actually compiling these accounts. So I'm going to launch it now, and it would be nice if you can answer this. I'll give you, I think, a minute, I think would be fine. Okay. I think I will end the poll now. Thank you very much for those that you reply.
Yep, thank you, everybody. So it looks like some of you don't compile either questionnaire. So in that case, we would suggest that you take a look at the e-learning resources and take a look at the manuals and everything. And these questionnaires can serve as a guide for your future implementation. And it's not something that you should be trying to fill out at the moment, since you do not currently compile the accounts. And then for the 40% that compile either questionnaire or both accounts, we hope that you will send in your data by April 14th. And this is our first time doing global data collection for PEFA and AEA. So we look forward to working closely with you. And as I mentioned, if you find any issues with the questionnaire or find any aspects inconvenient, we would definitely welcome this feedback, because we do want to make this experience as user-friendly for you all as possible. With that, I thank all of you. Have a wonderful day or evening, and we will share the recording and all of the links with you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.